Hey guys, welcome back to the Unlimited Potential Podcast. That's what I feel we're going to call it from now on, the Unlimited Potential Podcast. Kind of rolls off the tongue, and it keeps our options open in terms of the other audiences we do want to reach when it comes to lifestyle, behavioral change, mindset, motivation. It's not only about sport performance. I mean, obviously that's a big part of the topics that we're going to discuss, but we definitely want to keep our options open in terms of that. Big shout out, Toronto Raptors winning Game 1 yesterday. Huge game from the whole team. It was a big team win. A lot of guys contributed. Kyle Lowry facilitated like he usually does. Grabbed a couple charges. That was awesome to see. Pascal Siakam, I thought, was a player of the game. He had 32 points. He was making some tough shots. Kawhi Leonard, as always, contributed 21 or 22 points. I can't remember. But Marcus Gasol, he was big. 20 points as well. Everybody, they contributed. Fred VanVleet off the bench right away. He was hitting buckets. They took the momentum at the beginning of the game and they just rolled with it. And a friend of mine was actually saying that, even though Golden State was scoring, so was Toronto. Golden State would go down, score a bucket, Toronto would match it. And I think we got to keep this momentum rolling. And honestly, I'm saying it right now, I see a sweep or Game 7, one of the two. We match up really well against the Warriors, especially with KD out, and honestly, I think a couple other people think this too, but I think KD's not coming back for the entire series. I think he's got a torn Achilles. A lot of things point towards that, and I honestly think that the media and Golden State Warriors are just boosting with us, just trying to scare us a little bit. But go Raps, go! We got Game 2 on Sunday, back at home, so looking to get a big W on Game 2 and go up 2-0 before we head over to the West Coast for the potential sweep. But today's topic, on the topic of basketball, is how to improve your vertical jump. And I kind of got inspired for this post. A lot of the athletes over at St. Andrews actually were, they've been asking me a little bit about improving the vertical jump, and it kind of inspired me to set a goal for myself in terms of where, for me personally, I've been kind of slacking on my own programming. I wouldn't say I'm slacking on my training. I'm still training, 3, 4, 5 times a week sometimes. It really depends on my schedule. But I've been kind of just freestyling my workouts rather than actually programming for myself. There's been a lot of other things that I just have had on my plate and that are kind of a higher priority, but still getting quality training in, and that's what I told myself. I want to make sure I'm always getting quality training in. And the goal that I set for myself about 4 or 5 weeks ago was I wanted to dunk a basketball clean off of 2 feet. So that requires that I had to improve my vertical jump. And when it comes to trying to improve your vertical jump, the bottom line, you do have to jump more. I wouldn't say from a quantity standpoint, but more, you got to get your quality jumps in that sense, and you definitely got to put some reps under your belt when it comes to that. But when it comes to improving your vertical jump, we're going to talk about it today on a general perspective, because a lot of factors, it really depends on a lot of factors from an individual basis. I mean, some guys might need a little bit more strength, and just from developing more strength, you're going to improve your vertical jump, because the stronger you are, the bigger foundation you have, the more force you're going to put into the ground as you're jumping, and that's going to translate into getting higher off the ground. But like I said, it really depends. Some athletes are a little bit more reactive, right? I notice myself too being more of a reactive jumper because the way you can kind of measure that is, measure your vertical jump, your regular counter movement vertical jump underneath, whether you got a Vertimax or you got a jump mat. Do your counter movement jump, touch as high as you can, measure that, make sure you measure your reach, and then do an approach jump where you kind of take I like to use more of a volleyball approach where you're taking those 2 steps and you're jumping off 2 feet, trying to touch as high as you can. And for me personally, I had about I think it was a 3.5 to 4 inch. I did this a couple months ago. A 3.5 or 4 inch discrepancy between my more reactive jump and my counter movement jump. So that's a variable as well. Some guys are more reactive jumpers, and they might need a little bit more strength development because they're so reactive, they're so quick in that sense. But first, we're going to talk about just where strength kind of comes into play. Like I just said, the stronger you get, the more force you're going to be able to produce into the ground. So for a lot of lower training aged athletes who don't really have a solid foundation built, you can see improvements simply from, I mean, if you're squatting and you're pulling and you're lunging and you're jumping, you're doing everything that you kind of, the essential movements of being an athlete at a low training age, you're going to see improvements in your vertical jump for sure. But when it comes to more higher level athletes or higher training aged athletes, some methods can be used for sure to help with that. And I'm just going to kind of dive into what helped me, add a couple inches onto my vertical, and what worked for me, and what I believe and what I've seen work for other athletes as well. And I'm going to touch upon box jumping first. Box jump is, an important exercise when it comes to trying to improve your explosiveness and improve your power. But I heard on a Joe DeFranco's podcast a few weeks ago, him talking about straight leg landing when it comes to box jumping, and how that's the closest to an actual vertical jump, and actually seeing where you're at if you don't have a Vertimax, or you don't have a jump mat. Because like, if you think about it, when you're jumping for a Vertimax, your legs are relatively straight. So he spoke about implementing and programming more of, if someone's goal is to really, really want to try to dunk a basketball, or jump higher for volleyball, or jump higher if you're a receiver and you have to jump and you have to improve your vertical to high point a ball, or even a defensive back who has to high point the ball too. A lot of times you're jumping off of 2 feet when you high point that ball. So when you're doing those box jumps, and your legs are straight when you're jumping as well. So when implementing box jumps, Joe DeFranco talked about, landing with a straight leg. So for example, if you're jumping, let's just use the easy number of 24 inches, and you're able to consistently land with straight legs at 24 inches, that means you're able to get 24 inches off the ground. If you're slowly chipping away and trying to go higher and higher and higher, week by week, obviously from a quality standpoint, you want to make sure your reps are crisp, they're clean. But if you're just chipping away and adding an inch, adding half an inch, I know it's tough with box jumps, because a lot of times the boxes, they only really come, like over at St. Andrews, we have our 24 inch one, we have a 6 inch one. I think that's the smallest one we have, is 6 inch. We also have a 12 inch one. So it's harder to make incremental jumps, and it's a lot harder to improve your stiff-legged landing box jump than your typical box jump, where your hips are above your knees. You're in about I would say a quarter or a third of a squat in your landing mechanic. So yeah, but those directly correlate into improved vertical jump height, and it's worked. It's been proven. There's athletes out there who have gone through that type of training and really seen a good effect. And that's what I did a lot of. I did a lot more trying to land stiff-legged or with a little bit of a soft bend in my knee. I have a hard time, and again, this comes back to depends on a lot of things, right? For me, I've had a torn meniscus, and it's hard for me to really get my land in a fully extended position where I'm producing that force, or I'm absorbing that force through my knees, and it's a little bit difficult for that. But for me, I and for more higher training age athletes, contrast training is something that really helped me over the last few weeks, and really has helped me in general overall. But where we attack that foundation of strength, let's just break it down. For example, I was doing some trap bar deadlifting with box jumps, and you would do your trap bar deadlift, keep your rep range in that strength range, 3 to 5 reps, 85+%, and really get into a high intensity, high quality jump right afterwards, and that's gonna really, really improve your power, really improve your strength, and in the end, gonna improve your vertical jump. So that's definitely a really good way to attack that goal of improving your vertical jump. Contrast training is huge, and like we spoke about before, that base level of strength needs to be there. You're going to see improvements if you get stronger, if you do more pull-ups, and you improve from 6 pull-ups to 10 pull-ups within a 6-week program. Like, your vertical jump will improve based on the amount of relative strength you've developed over those 6 weeks. But yeah, I mean, vertical jumping, a lot of the times people think that when you vertical jump, you're only really gonna improve your jump, like your vertical power. But a lot of the times it does transfer into other aspects. So your horizontal force development, even lateral force. You're really gonna attack a bunch of things if you're improving your vertical jump, and it's beneficial for everybody. Who doesn't like jumping higher, right? Especially from an athletic performance side of things. So try those few things out. Contrast training is a huge one. Try to improve your relative strength with your pull-ups. Relative strength is anything in relation to your body weight. So if you're doing pull-ups, even push-ups are going to be able to help with that. Body weight jumps, all our box jumps, our single leg jumps, bounds, all those type of stuff are going to help improve your relative strength and improve your power at the same time. So those are two really, really good ways to try to improve. Again, I'm kind of just splitting it in that lower training age in comparison to the higher training age. If you're a higher training age athlete, try to incorporate some contrast training into your training, and you're going to see some marginal improvements when it comes to that. And if you're a lower training age athlete, just do the basics, right? Squat better, move better. A lot of times if you're restricted in your ankles or restricted in your hips, you're going to lose some of that power when it comes to trying to jump as high as you can. So look at what your limiting factors are in terms of mobility, and this is the same for higher training age athletes too. A lot of times that's going to limit you in terms of jumping higher, right? If your mobility is lacking, then you got to address that, and you got to attack that. But I think when it comes to vertical jumping, contrast training, relative strength development, very, very important when it comes to trying to improve that vertical jump. So hopefully we can keep building off what we got. But this week it was a good little session, and looking forward to talking to you guys next time. Take care.